Today's interview is with Micheal Flight. Micheal started investing in real estate in around 1986. So he's been around, he's seen 4 different market cycles and done a lot of cool stuff. Flipped, bought rentals, he does a lot of triple net leases now. And he also, we didn't get into this until later on in the interview, unfortunately. I'm going to have him back another time to talk about how he's using the blockchain and options of using the blockchain. And this was mind-blowing to me, and my head is still spinning from what he was telling me, but really, really interesting stuff, and how he sees the future of raising money, of syndications, of how you can use the blockchain for all of this. So really fascinating interview. So I think you want to stick around for all of this interview because it's some great stuff. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we have Micheal Flight with us. Hey, Micheal.
How you doing, Barry? It's great to be here.
I'm doing fantastic. I'm very happy to have you here today and excited for our conversation. So appreciate you taking the time. We're having a fun conversation before, talking about all kinds of stuff. So it'll be a good chat, no doubt about that. But before we kind of dive into that, do you want to give people an idea about who you are and what you've been up to?
Sure. My name is Micheal Flight. I've been in real estate for close to 35, 36 years, somewhere around there. I don't do math that well, so I can't go back to 1986, 85. But anyways, I've been in real estate for that long, primarily specialized in retail real estate, which is shopping centers, malls, and net lease real estate investments. They're all, triple net leases. Myself and some partners started a company called Concordia Realty back in 1990. And we, since 1990, have been in business. And we've partnered with large hedge funds, institutional investors, including insurance companies, private equity groups, and also real estate investment trusts. So we've done everything from small single-tenant little buildings up to large 900,000 square foot malls. We were also one of the first to do what's called demalling, which we took a failed mall and knocked it down, emptied it out, and built something else. And I've also done, as side projects, I've owned multifamily. During the last recession, we did workouts for banks. So we did broken condo projects, portfolios of single family houses. And my partner and I have flipped over, we're not doing it anymore, but in the past, probably more than 150 houses in the Chicago area. So, but that's too much work for me. I'd rather deal with some of the larger stuff now.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, you have quite the experience. It's obviously you've done a bit in real estate. How did you first get started in real estate? What kind of brought you to real estate?
I like to tell the story. I went to college to become a Lutheran pastor. And Greek and Hebrew were a sign from God that I should not be a Lutheran pastor because you had to learn those languages, and that really wasn't my strong suit. And so I and my brother went to one of these nothing down seminars where you could buy real estate with nothing down. That was in the probably around 1984, 85. And we said, oh yeah, we're going to go out and buy all this real estate. And then reality slapped us in the face and said, well, you kind of got to have a job to qualify for a loan and some other things like that. But I, caught the real estate bug, and I finished out with a degree in psychology and sociology, and just went directly into real estate. And I actually started working for a local apartment rehabber, during the summer before I graduated. And, we were redoing, apartments and things like that. And once I graduated, he said, I don't really have a spot for you on my roster here. Why don't you become a commercial real estate broker? So I became a commercial real estate broker and went into retail real estate, because if you got involved with a tenant, you could do multiple deals with that tenant versus in office or industrial, you do one deal and then you have to go out and cold call for more. So with retail real estate, you could develop a relationship and do 10 or 20, especially in the Chicago area. So I always tell people I got into retail real estate because I was lazy. I didn't want to cold call.
So, but even back in 1984, 1985, they had the seminars similar. I'm sure there's more
Oh
of them
yeah,
now.
yeah.
But they were they the same kind of strategy that you go for a 2-a-day event and then they upsell you and then they upsell you again?
Some of them were that. I mean, there was guys that did infomercials on TV. There's this one really famous guy, which this wasn't the guy, Carlton Sheets, and he'd be
Yeah.
on this yacht, and and you just buy his book, or back then that they were also selling was cassette tapes. So I'm not sure too many people know what those are anymore. But there was no podcast, there was nothing. So with this one, it was like 2 or 3 hours. He went through like a slideshow. It was in a hotel, and then it's like rush to the back of the room because we've only got a few books left, and you could be on your way. And so we bought one of the books. I remember having the book, and when we moved our offices a few years back, and I found the book, and I eventually threw it out. But probably should have held on to it, because it was interesting. So
yeah. And then was it roughly the same time that you started as a commercial broker?
that was what got me into. I then took my real estate broker's courses at nighttime while still going to college. And I got a job with one of the teachers who was teaching real estate investment at the time at the local community college. And then after I graduated, I started as a commercial real estate broker, straight commission. So
And what was the landscape like that? Was that around what, 86, 87, maybe around
it
that?
was at night. I graduated from college in 1986, and
Okay.
so there was no internet.
Yeah.
Mobile phones were a thing of the future. My first phone was a car phone, and that was probably in like 1989, and it was in the trunk of the car, so it took up the whole trunk of the car. And my first computer was a compact 286, which cost $4,500, and you literally had to put the floppy disk in for DOS to load, and there was no window, there was no uh, intuitive user interface. You're just staring at a black screen with like green green letters. So the paper that as it went through. So, and we did everything by fax. Fax was like the technology of the future back then. So, and then I was lucky that when we started our company, a friend of mine from high school was he did Unix consulting, and they wrote programs for Unix. And so he started his business at the same time I did. So we were sharing office together, and he was like one of the first guys who had access. I mean, they had the internet, but he was at the forefront of like having access to the internet. So, but it was dial-up modem, so it took forever, and I remember one time all these guys were standing around the printer, and they're waiting for this thing. It's like printing out a line at a time because it's like, an inkjet printer. And as this thing's coming out, it's like this giant picture, or like a picture, but it took, close to 20 minutes to print, and it was just German porn. And I'm like, oh, so this is the internet for.
Yeah, and I remember the dial-up myself. It always used to take so long, and it'd make that noise, and you cross both fingers that it'll actually connect, because you could wait 10 minutes and then it wouldn't actually connect, and you'd have to start back over again.
Exactly. Yeah. So that it's a little bit different landscape. I mean, I think people that are starting out in the real estate business today are, or any time in the past 10 years, you've just got so much more that you can do. Then the other thing is we're international now. I mean, we've got, people working for us in the Philippines, Romania, Bulgaria, India, and it's truly global. I mean, we couldn't even have this type of conversation. I mean, I was explaining to some of my younger partners who are all below 35. I'm like, we actually had to pay for a thing called long distance, and it was separate from regular phone service.
Right.
And you didn't like make long distance phone calls that long, because it's like, get off the phone, it's long distance. And then this is free. So it's just an incredible world.
Yeah, it's amazing. So when it was 1990 that you started your own business?
That's correct.
How did that come about?
It came about because there was a recession started in 1988. Some people call it the savings and loan crisis. But what happened was Ronald Reagan and Congress changed the tax laws. So they reduced the tax rates dramatically, but that also got rid of a lot of tax write-offs that people were taking, because there was a lot of syndications that were done just completely for write-offs. Nobody ever got income from them. There was doctors and dentists and lawyers and accountants that needed, they had all these high taxes, and so they reduced their taxes by those deals. So those changed. And then the other thing is they changed the banking system. So at the time, savings and loans could only, and that's like what you see in A Wonderful Life, he's the savings and loan, they could only lend on houses. And so Congress deregulated them. And so these guys went out, had no experience, and, some of them were criminals, and they just like started lending money everywhere. And so probably like half of Texas, went down in bad loans at the time. Oh, and the other thing is the oil prices dropped. So you had all this stuff happening. And so you had the savings and loan crisis. So it put the United States into a recession. And so at the time we started, the trade group that we belong to is called International Council of Shopping Centers. And every year in Vegas, they have a huge show. And I've been going to Vegas since 1986, every year to this show, except for last year. Their big thing, all the banners said "Stay alive till 95." So I mean, and it was a bad recession. There was guys, at some of the meetings I was going to, predicting there'd never be another office building built in Chicago, until like 1999 or 2020, and sure enough, things worked out, and they started building, around 93, 94, and so this is the fourth recession I've been through.
Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah, I've always heard of the savings and loans and had an idea about what was going on, but didn't fully understand what was going on. Like you explained.
We did some work. That's how, when we started our company, we did some workouts for a real estate investment trust that had made some bad loans. So we were doing workouts on some of those properties. And we all in a workout is when the lender engages you to put together a strategy, dress up the property, and then sell it off for them. So we've actually done that every recession since then, and we were very active in 2009 and 2010 doing workouts for local banks here, and those were, like I said, broken condo projects. We did a few of those, and people that had lent on portfolios of single family houses. So we managed those and then sold them off, and maximize the value for the banks.
So what exactly do you guys do? Obviously that you explain what a workout is, but what part do you guys play in that? Essentially, these properties have gone into foreclosure, right? The banks have taken them back.
So we act as service providers on those. So we manage the properties, we do the accounting, and we with the residential, I have a partner that just does residential real estate. We don't do residential real estate. I always tell people I've been a broker since 1986 and never sold a house. So, but my partner, who's really good at selling real estate, we would manage it. We would, dress it up and get it, prepared. There's a lot of stuff. Sometimes you have to kick the tenants out because they're not paying rent. Other times you have to, the house is just left a mess and you've got to get it cleaned up. So it's prepared to sell. And then, my partner would sell it. So, and then initially on some of the shopping centers that we've done workouts on, it's the same thing. It's you stabilize the property, you get all the tenants either paying rent or you kick them out. You try and upgrade the property by putting some new tenants in, clean it up, make sure there's no liabilities. Because the biggest thing with shopping centers is, there'll be like a broken pipe in and people will trip, or, they'll run into something. So that's the type of thing we do in a workout, is just get it so that the lender has no more liabilities, or reduce the lender liabilities, straighten out the tenant situation, try to get it into a cash flowing situation, and then get it off their books for them.
Was there any reason that you guys worked with the banks in the workouts? Like, obviously, you guys have the knowledge to run these properties, right? Even the tricky ones, right? You guys are dealing with some tough properties to turn around. Was there any reason that you guys did the workout rather than owning some of these properties yourself?
Number one, at the time, a lot of the stuff I didn't want to own, but
Okay.
it's garbagey stuff. But number two, when we started the company, I had worked for a large syndicator that owned about 270 shopping centers nationwide. And in 1989, I was laid off. So I went from being a broker, I skipped this part. I was hired by a large syndicator. I did leasing and redevelopment for them. And then I was laid off. And so my partner was laid off from a different company. So we decided to combine and we started our company. I had relationships from my previous company with guys that went to work for Aegon Real Estate. They went to work for a Dutch pension fund consortium that was publicly traded. They went to work for real estate investment trust. So I had this network of people, and they either had properties that they were trying to redevelop, or they had properties that they had taken back and they were trying to do workouts. So we started as a service provider and then worked our way into ownership. Because at the time, I can't remember how old I was, but probably 28 or something. And, when my partner and I started our business, we had to deliver newspapers in the morning just to make ends meet, and then
Really?
run the broker's business. It was tight. I mean, our rent was like $400 a month and we were sharing it with, and so it was $200 a month because we're sharing it with my friend who also started his company. And, the office space was in an attic of this, commercial building. And we had to shore up the file cabinets because the floors sagged so much that if you opened it up, they'd smack you in the face. So, so it was we always said we're operating like a depression startup, and it was all cash, and just bootstrapped it.
Yeah, yeah. So when you did start investing, what did you start investing in, and why?
We started investing alongside our clients, who then became our partners. So we started investing in what we knew, which is shopping centers. So that's how we started, and then from there, I branched out into other stuff. So, like I said, I had a friend who was a really successful residential real estate broker, and he was averaging, anywhere from 100 to 125 sales a year.
Wow.
And so he's like, Mike, I got all this stuff. Do you want to, do this? And so we started throwing our own money in. We started raising money. And when everything, collapsed in 2008, 2009, we started raising a fund to buy broken condo projects and buy single family houses to flip. So we did that. It was more difficult than I thought, and it took up way too much of my time. So I haven't really done any of that stuff since 2013.
Well, it seems like during the last recession, there was a lot of broken condos, right? I've heard that a lot, and it's not something you hear so much these days. Well, do you know, was there any reason in particular for that?
Because the exit straight. So number one, the prices got bid up so high on apartments, just like, and there's always the concern that that's going to happen now, but the prices got bid up way too high on apartments. So they didn't make sense as apartments. So the whole thing was, oh, your exit is, we're going to sell you this overpriced apartment building. You can go get it platted for a condo project. And then, you can sell off the individual units and you'll make, 3 times your money. There was also a lot of like development deals, but all that stuff, was based on the availability of people being able to get, no money down or 3% loans and all the rest of it. And so, when the music stopped and there was a bunch of, immigrants, especially in the Chicago area, there was like Serbians. We were doing workouts for this one bank and they had lent to Serbians. And in Ukrainians. And so those guys just took all the money, never did the work, and then just disappeared into Eastern Europe. So I'm not sure if they ever found them again. And, a lot of things like I've learned, with my wife, it's like sometimes things are a little more sketchy over in Europe. It's not like the documentation. So, she really doesn't know what her birthday is because she was born in Italy, and they're like, oh, she was born at home. So, could be this day. It could be this day. Who knows? But it's the same thing. The banks couldn't find those guys because they weren't even sure that was their real name.
That's amazing. Yeah, wasn't so great for the banks, but
no. I mean, I'm just, and that's why it's a lot harder sometimes to borrow money these days because every time those long list of contracts expand. This is what I say in retail real estate too. It's like I started out in a retail real estate lease was probably around 10 to 15 pages. Now they're close to 60 pages. And that's just years and years of bad things happening to each other. So it's like, okay, this bad thing happened. So now I'm going to include a clause on that.
Yeah. That's how a lot of people learn, right? The bad thing. You don't know about something until it happens to you, and then you want to include it in that. But what is your main bulk of what you do now? What is your main focus now? Is it still doing workouts? Is it investing?
We invest in, so prior to last year, we were investing in shopping centers. And in 2019, beginning of end of 2018, the beginning of 2019, we started putting together a fund because I saw a trend that a lot of, retail was going to go online, and also a trend that a lot of retailers wanted to do individual single tenant, triple net lease buildings and not be in a shopping center. They wanted to be out in front of the shopping center. They wanted to be at Main and Main. They wanted drive-throughs. So I and my partners got together and said, this is the direction of where the industry is going. So, and this is a more conservative investment. So we've gone all in on buying portfolios of single tenant, triple net lease properties. And so the other thing that we have been doing for also the last 3 years is trying to put together what's called a security token fund. So it's a blockchain-based real estate security. And so it's just like a normal syndication. So the fund that we're putting together is a 506c syndication. But on top of that, it has a security token, and that security token rides on the blockchain, similar to how cryptocurrencies. So it actually gets your investors liquidity because they can actually trade the token after a 1-year lockup period. And it gets them out of the banking system. So if they choose to, they can take their money as Ethereum or a stable coin, and then they're actually outside the banking industry. So your relatives over in Wales could invest in your properties here and receive their money as euros, as British pounds, or as a cryptocurrency and keep it, outside of, wherever, so that they've got control over it.
Wow, that's fascinating. I've not heard of that before. So what does it essentially change for people? It's the same thing. It's a syndication where maybe there's an equity split between you guys running the deal and the limited partners.
It's exactly the same as a normal syndication where, let's say, you're the sponsor of buying a multifamily property. So everything is the same. The next level is that you do it through a securitization platform. We're using a platform called Securitize. And so they're a combination crowdfunding platform, and they've got the investor dashboard and everything, but they also mint the token, which means that your PPM goes into a smart contract, and that smart contract gets attached to the blockchain so that it's a permanent record on the blockchain. So that, token and smart contract go with that investor. And so let's say you and I decide to put together a multifamily, property. We decide we're going to buy something for 100,000. And you and I take the sponsorship position. We take 20,000, and we, distribute the rest of the tokens to investors for the other 80,000. Every time, we pay like a monthly distribution or a quarterly distribution, that gets distributed through the token. So they can choose to take the money and have it deposited into a bank, or they could choose to have it deposited into a crypto wallet, where it's out on the blockchain. And the really cool thing about that is that not only are you outside the banking system? But we've also just partnered with last week a group called BlockFi. So you could deposit your tokens with BlockFi and they'll lend against them. Or so you could, like, let's say you want to borrow money and you need some liquidity right now. If you got $100,000 of tokens, you could deposit them in there and they'll lend you like $20,000. So, and you can't get that from a normal syndication because it's private real estate, it's non-liquid. The other thing is you can deposit your tokens there and you can earn extra interest on them because they lend out that money. So there's just all kinds of really head spinning cool stuff.
Yeah, you're right. I'm glad you said head spinning because my head is spinning, right? It's like the crypto blockchain thing is above my pay grade.
The easiest and simplest answer is that the security token opens up the world to real estate investors that they can invest in the United States or invest anywhere in the world. So it's a wider liquidity pool for syndicators, and it also helps with, because it makes it more efficient to track your investors. And then the next thing it does is it gives in your investors all these extra options. So instead of being locked into one of your syndications that might be locked up for 10, 15, 20 years, your investors can decide, I want to trade half of my shares because I want to invest in one of Barry's other projects. So I'll just list these on a securities exchange. And, or I can go to you and say, Barry, do you want to, purchase, some of these tokens from me? So here's $30,000 worth of tokens. As long as you put up the 30,000, and I put up the token, or you put up the 30,000 and I put up the tokens, the trade goes through. So there's no broker involved, but it gives you much better liquidity. It gives you control over the timing of your investments. And like I said, it gives you all these other options that are just going to keep coming out and coming out. So as people understand it more, every time, like I've had conversations with people, 3 times that are very sharp guys and women. And like the third time, it's like, I just saw these things on non-fungible tokens, which, people are buying like the artwork and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And I finally realized what you're doing and I want to get into it. So.
Right. That's how they understood it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So rather than me trying to ask a question, what are the common questions that people ask you? That might be a better question, and the misconceptions. And
people ask me, is it cryptocurrency? And it's not cryptocurrency. It's a regulated security. So it's exactly the same thing as investing in a normal syndication. So the key thing is to make sure that your sponsor knows what they're doing, just like you would in anything. You want somebody that's experienced in doing what they're doing and knows a little bit about investing in multifamily. With us, knows a lot about investing in net lease properties. So that we have people ask about how safe it is, and because they hear these things about people losing their cryptocurrency wallet. So there's like $10 billion in Bitcoin that's like just disappeared because their wallet is lost. With security tokens, we can reissue the security tokens. So if you lose access to your security tokens or somebody steals your security tokens, Securitize has access. We can reburn the tokens. So it's much safer than investing in securities or cryptocurrencies. And then, like I said, it's a regulated instrument. So that's what everybody's like, well, who regulates it? In the United States, it's the SEC. And outside the United States, it's the European Union. Each individual, like, Germany has BaFin, and there's other, I forget what the UK is, but it's Fin something. But, so they're regulated. But the cool thing is that you have the ability to trade them anywhere in the world.
But so with a a normal syndication, right? And the investors that you usually have to vet that. You have to vet them, right? If it's a 506C, they have to be accredited. If it's 506B, they have to be sophisticated or accredited, right? And you have to have a prior relationship with it. There's regulations. So if someone is looking to sell their stake, their part on the blockchain, right, and be liquid, can they just sell it to anyone, or is there a pool of buyers that they then can sell that have been vested?
So this is the really cool thing, but I'm going to back up and answer the first of your question. So in order to invest in a security token, in order to distribute and issue a security token, you not only need to, so we need to vet them for their accredited investor status, but we also have to do what's called a KYC, which is know your customer. Mm-hmm. So we have to make sure they are who they say they are. And then we have to do what's called an anti-money laundering check, because the United States Treasury doesn't want you using these tokens to like go sell drugs and then invest them in the token so you can wash the money. So there's actual 3 checks with this. The really cool thing, and the SEC has approved this, is that after the 1-year lockup period, they do not have to be traded to an accredited investor. Any investor in the world is open to invest in them at that point.
So after that year, it's just free game to.
Yes, after the 1-year lockup, the SEC has approved that they can be sold or traded or distributed to non-accredited investors.
Wow, that's fascinating.
And in the UK and Europe, they're called professional investors.
Wow, that changes things, right? That makes things a lot different.
Super huge. I mean, and what it really changes stuff for the investor in terms of having flexibility with their investment, but it also changes things that people that couldn't ordinarily get into high quality real estate investments can now get into some excellent real estate investments. And it's going to just open up liquidity, and it's going to open up access for people like in the middle of the Welsh Highlands. A guy could be on his phone out there, I'm going to make a racist statement. It's like, you guys have shillelaghs, right? Or,
that's Ireland. Yeah. But same thing. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Just out there walking, hanging out and, and you just get on your mobile phone and, at some point in the near future, you're going to just be able to invest in a London, office building. There's London office buildings already listed. You're going to invest in, high quality real estate. They're doing stuff in Singapore and Hong Kong. So you're going to be able to invest in real estate. And you'll probably like this. And I'm just, again, making a racial statement, but there's a guy, they're tokenizing Scotch whiskey funds. Okay. And they're tokenizing in the United States bourbon whiskey funds. So they take, they buy up barrels of whiskey that's laid down for like 5 years for aging. And these guys are buying them up so that the distillers have money to work with. And then at the end of the 5 years, they'll release them and sell off the aged, bourbon and Scotch.
Wow. This is game changing. This is fascinating. I haven't heard of this before, to be honest.
Yeah, everything. I mean, they've tokenized, VC investment companies and VC investment funds. Anything that used to be a private real estate investment that was available to super sophisticated and, perhaps only really ultra wealthy people that knew about it. You heard about it in the country club. That's going to be all available to investors all over the world. And it's going to, what I really like, it's going to diversify them out of the stock market. And so, you don't get into a GameStop issue. You're going to get cash flow, you're going to get regular income, you're going to get the stability of real estate.
Wow. Incredible. This is so interesting. I appreciate you sharing. But, as we're wrapping up now, and this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate. I like to incorporate some wrestling related real estate questions. And the first one is, what would your wrestling name be?
I don't have enough time to think about this, but it's got to be a play on, flight, like the fighting flight or something, hopefully not fight or flight. Or, I always like something with a hammer in it, but, that's the Scottish part of me.
Okay, cool.
But something like that.
Okay, cool. So every wrestler has a special move. What is your special move in real estate?
I don't necessarily have a special move. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, but I guess my special move is having experience in knowing how to add value in triple net real estate. So that's my specialty is triple net real estate, and we've been adding, millions and millions of dollars of value with these properties over the last 30 years.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good superpower or a special move. Yeah, absolutely. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken?
Oh, there's been many. When we talk with potential institutional partners and, equity investors, I like to tell them it's like, well, I haven't had everything go wrong, but I've had one of the most expensive lessons. I should have just gone to college for real estate, but we've had plenty of expensive lessons, from environmental problems to contractors taking the money and then running off, and all kinds of things. So I can say that it's just been you. If you're not out there failing, you're not. I mean, you want to do your due diligence. You want to be as careful as possible, but you also need to kind of like just jump off, the edge, so to speak, and jump into it. And there's going to be setbacks on everything. I have a friend, and she's a dear friend, and she likes to describe the journey as not a straight line up, but it's more of a spiral. It's like you're up here, you're at the top, and then you come down here, and then you have to turn and, make it start going up again. Because if you don't make the turn here, then you just go here. So she said, success is a spiral. It's not, a straight line up.
Yeah. And unless you've had setbacks, right, you're not out there taking enough action, right? Not that you should expect a setback, but it's going to happen, right? Because unless you're taking enough action, you're not going to get that setback.
And you need to be prepared for it. So what I say is I haven't had everything that could possibly go wrong, but we're not going to panic if something does go wrong, because we've made it through. We've done, we've had good things. We've had a lot of good things happen too. So, but you just, every time it is what it is. It's a, industry with people. It's an industry with, moving parts. It's an industry that, there's wear and tear. So stuff just happens.
Yeah.
And then one of the bigger issues that we've run into is, sometimes you have crazy governments that make you do, stupid things that, really in other places you don't have to do. So that's always the wild card too. So I would always suggest, if you're investing, make sure that you look at the regulatory environment, where you're investing. A lot of people say, oh, this stuff is great. Things are going great. I can buy this cheap. It's like, sometimes it's not worth buying it so cheap, because, if you're in a regulatory environment, they're going to fee you to death. They're going to just kill your investment.
Yeah. That's very true. Very true. So was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it?
I really, I can't remember anything. It's not the super huge things. It's sometimes it's the just making the phone call to reach out to the person that you're intimidated by, that you think your entire career rests on. I need to talk to this particular investor, or I need to talk to these guys. And you just delay. And then, when you end up having a conversation, sometimes you end up, partnering with them. Sometimes you end up having a great relationship with them. Other times, it doesn't work out, but it's just not as scary as you make it out to be. So I think that's, it's more of the smaller, type of things. Oh, I got to call this guy. I want to call this guy, but I don't know how to approach him. Am I going to write the email the best? Just, kind of take the shot and, reach out. I can tell you from people that I've recently hired, they've just, sometimes just reached out to me and showed value. And, it's just like, wow, this is the most amazing thing in the world. And you did this because you reached out to me, and then you were a little bit persistent. But I don't need to hire anybody right now, but,
So don't reach out if you want a job.
but we've gotten some of our best employees by them just happened to be there at the right time, and they were persistent, and they said, hey, and they figured out a way to show that they had value.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Micheal, thank you so much for taking the time today, man. This has been so fascinating, just all the wealth of experience you have. And like to cap that all off, to talk about, the new concept about using the blockchain for people to invest and what's possible with that is just, I think my head is still spinning, but it's really interesting. I'm definitely going to be looking at more about that. But before we go, if people want to reach out to you and get in touch with you, if people want to find out more about what you've got going on, how can they do so?
They should visit libertyfund.io. That's libertyfund.io. They can get our special blockchain report. It's a button right at the top of the website. If they're interested in contacting me, they can contact me at hello@libertyfund.io, and love to talk to them. If they're interested in just learning more about triple net properties and what net leases are, we have a ton of resources on our website. We also have a regular meetup. It's called the Chicago Blockchain Real Estate Collective. And we've had some of the best people that are actually in the security token business or the tokenization business. And so we've just had some fantastic guests on there. And you'll get a better idea if you go to, we've got all those on our website, or also by all means, join us for our Chicago Blockchain Real Estate Collective meetup. The next one, we've got a broker dealer that deals in digital assets. And it's going to be the first week in April. So.
Okay, fantastic. That's really interesting. Well, Micheal, thank you so much for making the time, and thank you so much for sharing everything. It's just been absolutely mind-blowing on my end. So hopefully everyone got a lot of value out of this, which I'm sure they did. But thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Barry.